the last video, I covered the first half of my day trip taken in the Sakamoto Rice Terrace and the sights and surroundings of Sakurajima, Japan's most active volcano. In this video, the race is on to get down to Kyushu and therefore mainland Japan's southernmost point at Cape Sata before sunset. Okay. こんにちは。満タンにおください。レギュラーです。はい。元気です。はい。はい。ありがとうございました。どうも。
In 300 meters, turn right.
This is nice. Another nice place, huh? Ah, this is beautiful. This is so much nicer. I'm sorry you weren't there. All mountainous and rugged. But before all of that, I wanted to check out the Ogawa Falls, or Ogawa Taki as they're known in Japanese. They lay partway down the O River in Minami Osumi town. In the last video, I made a mistake saying they were part of Kinko town, but for a tiny finger of land, that makes them part of Minami Osumi. The waterfalls take their namesake from the O River, which can be interpreted as male river amongst many things, but more likely is the meaning that it's the bigger of the two, presumably meaning a smaller river somewhere that it was compared to. Maybe the other one is called Mengawa, if I was to be silly and choose the kanji, and unlikely associated reading for the opposite to Ogawa in this case. Minami Osumi town, like so many in Japan, was established from merging smaller former municipalities into larger entities. This was particularly noted between 1999 and 2010 as part of the Heisei no Daigappei, taking its name from the imperial era of the time, Heisei, and Daigappei meaning large-scale amalgamation. Miyako, where I lived in Iwate at the time of shooting this video in 2022, is technically the second largest city in the whole of Tohoku, in the northeast region of Japan by landmass, but by most of it being mountainous and uninhabited, it means that the actual overall population is rather small for its relative landmass. And despite merging with nearby municipalities such as Taro, Nisato and Kawai, Miyako today has a smaller population than it did before the amalgamation, although, to be fair, the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami of 2011 is also a factor, sadly, in Miyako's case. The declining population in many areas of Japan is namely twofold: an ageing population combined with a declining birth rate, and second, many young people leaving these smaller areas to live and work in bigger cities, such as Sendai in Tohoku's case, or in Minami Osumi's case, Kagoshima City potentially. As a result, despite resembling an area the size of, say, Stockton-on-Tees unitary area in northern England, Minami Osumi has a population of just under 5,900 as of 2023 versus approximately 197,000 in Stockton-on-Tees unitary's case. This is far from a new phenomenon here in Japan. Many municipalities peaked in population well before the 1990s here and have declined precipitously so since. With the underpopulation I have just talked about, it seems so strange and ironic and maybe sometimes a little bit sad that so many people crowd themselves into the big metropolises here in Japan such as Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto and Nagoya, and yet so much of Japan is so beautiful and unspoiled like you see in Kinko and Minami Osumi towns. In this quietness, it's where you will find places like the Ogawa Falls, unspoiled and there to be enjoyed by those who will take a short walk from the car park to see the natural beauty of this turquoise water plunging into the beautiful vista that you can see laid out before you. Sometimes people travel to maybe find a reflection of their soul in what they see, to connect with something deeper within them. Places like the Ogawa Falls are where some people may feel that. The thing is, if you learn to know what is signal and what is noise in life, You will often find that enrichment everywhere you look in life, but places like the Ogawa Falls emphasise it for sure. After seeing the Ogawa Falls, I ran back to the car. In fact, I'd actually run to see the Ogawa Falls in the first place because light was beginning to fade and I was in a race against time to get to Cape Sata, ideally before sunset. But what really took me back on this part of the journey was how beautiful this part of the world really was. It seemed to have that perfect blend of ruggedness and gentle agricultural value, a richness in landscape that I can appreciate. As I neared the end of the Osumi Peninsula, I wasn't certain if I would make it in time to see Cape Sata before darkness. I guess in my mind's eye, I was thinking I may be able to see Kagoshima, as immortalised in Makoto Shinkai's 5 centimetres per second. I was amused by a connection that had emerged in my mind that connected that anime story with my car that I was driving at the time, because my car had a Tochigi license plate, and Tochigi is where one of the characters, Akari, in the anime moves to, before Takaki, another character, moves to Tanegashima. I don't know why, but my mind often dwells on these silly little connections in life. The light was perfect along the coastal route 269, as I could see across the Ibusuki with the Kaimondake volcano in clear view, as you can tell from its almost perfect symmetrical shape. It's often actually called the Fuji of Satsuma, which is named after the area, not the fruit, and in this case, Satsuma refers to sweet potato, known in Japanese as Satsumaimo. Unlike Sakurajima, Kaimondake has not erupted for over 1,000 years. One day I want to visit Ibusuki, in part due to a recommendation from my brother, but also a conversation I had whilst in Miyazaki with a local that revealed that the coastline in that part of Kagoshima is very much like the Rias coast or Jagi coastline of the Sanriku area which I used to live in northeastern Japan, and by extension the coastlines of my own country. Cape Sata is where mainland Japan runs out. Beyond here, the islands of Kagoshima, such as the aforementioned Tanegashima, and further afield, Okinawa and Ryukyu Islands. Thankfully, I had read that an abandoned restaurant and observation deck at Cape Sata had been torn down. So many of Japan's beauty spots are blighted by abandoned buildings, so it was reassuring to know that the natural beauty wouldn't be spoiled. The lighthouse at Cape Sata was actually designed by a Scotsman, Richard Henry Brunton, known affectionately as the father of Japanese lighthouses. During the Meiji Restoration, the government of Japan pledged to learn from other nations in the world to advance Japan, and from Britain they declared that they would learn engineering. To this end, he helped design and supervise the building of 26 lighthouses and would go on to help found Japan's first school of engineering. There are a couple of lighthouses where I now live in Mie, and some in neighbouring Wakayama Prefecture, which I intend to visit someday. Indeed, another of those little connections I dwell upon bubbled up in my mind here. The most prominent rebellion to the reforms during the Meiji era, of which Brunton's work was a part of, was the so-called Satsuma Rebellion. Yes, the very same Satsuma region I just talked about a moment ago with regards to Ibusuki, albeit in a historical context as the Satsuma domain. All things in life seem to go in circles if you look hard enough, it seems. The Satsuma Rebellion of 1877 was the most recent civil war fought in Japan, and is a fascinating read to see how the last gasp of the old order in Japan was ultimately crushed. Luckily, I did make it down to Cape Sata before dark. For me, this was the furthest south that I could go on my trip from Miyako in Iwate, and all I could do from here was to turn back around. Albeit, there is much more to come because I had a few more days left in Miyazaki Prefecture, and also I had Nagasaki City to look forwards to. All of which you can see in the next videos in this series about my 2022 Kyushu trip. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, folks. I hope you're all keeping really well, and I'll see you in a future one of these. Take care. Bye bye.